Hello.
Hi, Yaki. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
I'm doing good. Welcome, everybody, to the first Conversation Design Meetup in Tel Aviv. I'm very excited to have everyone here, especially my mentor and good friend, Yaki Dunietz.
Where's your mask, by the way?
We should probably keep a distance from each other, shouldn't we?
All right.
We also have AnnA here today. So we say hi and see if she wants to join us.
All right.
Alexa, I'm a banana.
I'm a Banana by Omniscient from Spotify.
That's not good. I'm a banana. Alexa, stop.
כבר. תראה איך את זה קורה בלייב.
Alexa, AnnA banana.
I'm a Banana by Omniscient from Spotify.
I'm a banana. I'm a banana. I'm a banana.
Bad choice of keyword.
Stop.
Bad choice of skill name.
Alexa, AnnA banana.
Ciao, darling. What a pleasant surprise to have you here with me.
We're at the Conversation Design Meetup.
Oh, is that meetup of conversation designers today?
Yeah, it's happening right now.
As we speak.
Oh, great. So where is everybody? I only see you and Yaki.
It's virtual because of the whole COVID, and so it's virtual.
Ah, a virtual event. How clever. This sounds like another one of your imaginary tea parties. Count me out, Jason.
It's not imaginary. This is really happening. I think there's 100 people from all over the world at least tuning in right now.
I think more.
More?
More, yeah.
Yes.
You still there?
Grow up already. Sheesh. Screw you guys. I'm going home. But you know what?
What?
I'm glad you asked. If any one of these imaginary conversation designers wants to talk to me on an Echo device, have them send an email to Chen. I like Chen. Unlike you, he knows how to speak my language. C++. Ciao.
So you don't like conversation designers?
I don't like conversation designers. They're always putting words in my mouth.
Okay, thank you, goodbye. So,
Goodbye. Have a good night, or day, or whatever it is, and be sure to come back to talk some more later.
great, goodbye.
I am contemplating the meaning of life right now. Please say hi when you want to talk again.
Alexa, stop.
There was a problem communicating
Okay.
with the requested skill.
So as AnnA pointed out, anybody on the Discord channel can send their email to Chen. It's actually pronounced Chen. I don't know,
Let's leave it Chen.
Chen?
Yeah.
Just, okay. So
And he's not Chinese at all.
we don't know that. I mean, for sure, we don't have any kind
Okay.
of, yeah.
Okay.
So email Chen at a-i.com,
That's it.
and he'll basically give you access to the skill, and then you can play with AnnA if you want while we're talking conversation design.
Yep.
So let's jump right into it, Yaki.
What are we here for?
We're here because we're conversation designers, and I wanted to talk to you about that because this is relatively a new, well, for me at least, it's a new field.
I've been waiting for 20 years for a room full of conversation designers. I don't think I've been at it for 21 years now, and it's never happened.
Really?
They're still not in the same room, but in a manner of speaking, they are. And the reason I'm so happy about it is I've been yelling for years now that everything to do with conversational AI and chatbots is happening in islands, in thousands of islands of people doing their stuff, their own way. And this is crazy because no other, you can let the cat in. There's no other place in area in computer science or in computing at all that lacks collaboration to the extent it happens in our field. We don't talk to each other, we don't collaborate with each other, everybody's developing their own thing. the only collaboration that happens that there are islands of platforms that are more popular than others, so some people developing in the same platform get together in some forum or Facebook group. It's the most that's happening. And it's crazy. There is no place or forum or means by which people can share ideas, solutions, code, conversations, anything to do with our skill, with our craft.
Yeah.
So this is wonderful. And the fact that it happens at a time that people cannot really meet, it gives it even an additional level of interest or complexity, if you want.
Yeah.
Because now, not only do we have to collaborate to have something happen in this field, but we have to collaborate remotely. Okay? And somehow, without meeting, without installing one system on another server, etc., we need to meet, talk, and exchange everything. Particularly small conversations or components, as we call them, which is my angle to the whole thing.
But let's not get too technical, because a lot of these people are like me, they're conversation designers, they're like, what are you talking about? So let's go back for a second. I come from the field of filmmaking. I started off as went to film school, screenwriting, and 5 years ago I responded to an ad for an interactive screenwriter.
I remember.
And and at the time there wasn't a conversation designer position. It was basically writing interactive scripts. And because I had experienced screenwriting, I was able to use that experience and knowledge to craft personalities for the characters of the bots. Now you come at it from a different angle, and I know other people come at it from a lot of different angles. How did you get into conversation design? Because you're sort of a hybrid between programmer and designer.
First of all, I'm a sci-fi fan, so that started it all. And that's what pushed me to computer science 40 years ago, 45 years ago, and that's what pushed me 20, 25 years ago to the field of language and philosophy of language. And when you put computers and language together, what you get is what once was called a chatbot, which is really a demeaning term, or conversational AI, which sounds much more respectable. So guys, you're not chatbot designers, you are conversational AI designers, and that sounds much better in your resume, right?
It does.
Much better.
Yeah.
So that spawned my interest because I always thought that having computers speak like in the sci-fi movies and books was a matter of time and not a lot of time. And I wasn't alone in this false prediction. Ray Kurzweil, over 20 years ago, predicted that in 10 years we're going to have human-like machines in terms of their lingual abilities. And this is very, very far from happening.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
And we're not there yet, but if I asked him today, he would not repeat the same prediction even for 10 years from now. It seems so difficult. And the reason it seems difficult, in my opinion, and I've been at it a long time, is everybody's trying to do it alone. Okay? If thousands of people develop little pieces of the problem and then exchanged or shared them, things would look completely differently. But again, I don't want to dive into details, but my vision is to have data or computer of Star Trek or all these. I wouldn't include
HAL 9000.
I wouldn't include HAL 9000 because
I'm sorry, I can't do that, Yaki.
He was an early prototype. But it's happening. It's going to happen, and nobody questions even, or nobody argues with the fact it's only a question of time. And we are here to make this time shorter.
Great. I completely agree. I'm a huge sci-fi fan too. So today we're going to be talking about conversation design specifically. And because we're doing that, I thought I'd show a few slides of 5 of the worst mistakes that I've made as a conversation designer. And since you're here as my mentor, you'll probably have some pointers. And
I might have witnessed some of them.
You probably talked to a lot of them. So let's go to the first slide. AnnA, can you do the first slide? There we go. 5 mistakes I've made. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay. 5 mistakes I've made designing conversations. So if you're out there and you're designing conversations, here are 5 things that I've done, 5 bots that I've made that I've made a mistake, but I've learned, and we learn more from our mistakes than we do from...
We only learn from mistakes. If we're doing something right, we don't learn anything.
Yeah.
We just keep things as they are. Nothing changes. The only time when a change occurs is when a mistake occurs, and then we have to fix. So everything, including bots, including people, including everything, doesn't learn from a positive, from success. Okay, I'm not talking about the first 2 times, 3 times to establish what the right answer is, but I'm saying that in principle, you only learn when you are wrong. If you're right, you didn't learn anything.
Yeah, and it goes back to what I was saying about being a filmmaker. There's a lot of similarities, but the big difference is when you make a film, when you're done post-production on the film and released it into theaters, it's done. You can't really do anything with it. Maybe 10 years later you can release a director's cut like Ridley Scott does or something, but for the most part, it's done. But with a bot, the process just begins when you release it. That's when real users start talking to it.
Maybe we'll get to the feedback loop later
on in the
process. Yes.
Yeah. It's a very important part of the process, I would say.
It's an essential part of it.
Essential part of the process.
So Alexa, next slide, please.
Okay, so right now, Yaki, these are my bot credits. So
you're the man. There's no question about it. Everybody knows.
Well, I don't want to do that just to brag. I'm doing this because I have a very specific vertical that I focused on in the 5 years that I've been creating bots, and that's bots for the entertainment industry. Bots for the entertainment vertical. Bots that are meant to be fun, engaging, entertaining. Bots that are meant to sound, feel.
Not to serve a purpose. Not to even answer to a question and that's it.
Just to give the user, like Miss Piggy, I tried to create a very authentic Miss Piggy experience. The user who grew up watching the Muppets would finally get a chance to go on Messenger and talk to Miss Piggy. So basically, a lot of my mistakes I made may not be relevant to some of the people watching because they're making customer service bots or they're making enterprise or whatever. But yeah, we've done some pretty cool stuff here, including AnnA, which we've talked to. And we can talk to her later if you want.
Okay.
All right, AnnA. First slide, please. Okay. So Henry the Mean Bot. And I call it the Ballad of Henry the Mean Bot. It's when the bully becomes the bully. And what happened is, after the first 2 years of going through conversation logs and the feedback loop, I started noticing that not everyone, but a large percentage of people were very abusive, mean.
It's only a machine, you can abuse it.
You can abuse it, right? Just the name calling, sexual innuendos. It was awful. And so I thought to myself, you know what? I need a bot that's going to stand up for itself. That's going to, it's going to insult these people back. And so I went out and I trolled Reddit, and I trolled inside Reddit. There's a subreddit called Roast Me, which is where people basically say, hey, abuse me. And I took the worst insults I could find and made it as personal as possible until Henry was so mean that even my colleagues were getting upset and saying this is too much.
But they kept speaking to it.
And kept speaking to it. So I guess the lesson here is when you're creating a bot, expect people to not speak to it nicely. I wouldn't say go the way of Henry, because that might be going too far.
So what's the mistake here?
The mistake here is that you need to have a better process in place when users abuse the bot. So a good example of this.
Don't ignore it. React to it.
Well, maybe ignoring it. You could ignore it. The thing is that's what I'm trying to get at. The approach needs to...
That one thing you don't want to do. When the user abuses the bot, you don't want to say, I didn't quite get that. Can you please repeat your question in another way? I mean, that's one thing you don't want to do.
That's awful, right? Yeah, I agree. No, you want to...
Either you indicate that you understood and ignore in a way that it's understood that it was ignored, or you can react in a way which is permitted by whoever is running the bot. But definitely not just take it.
Yeah, no, exactly. So one of the ways that we've done in the past with clients is just to block the user for a day and say, give them like a timeout. It's basically saying to the user, okay.
Warn him first.
Warn them, like next time you say that, we're going to block you for a day. And then when they come back the next day, all of a sudden they start playing nice. Yeah. So the lesson here is you have to have a strategy in place for abusive, racist, sexist, angry users. Okay, AnnA, next slide. How are we doing on time?
15, 17 minutes?
Arose by any other name. Now this is important. So a few years ago, Skype approached us to do create a bot for their platform, and we created this amazing, really cool mindfulness meditation bot named Edward. And I always say to people, first thing you need to do when you start a bot project is name your bot. I named it Edward. Might have been a good name, who knows? But the other side of that, and this is where you can help us, Yaki, the other side of the coin is getting the user's name right. And when they tested it internally at Skype, I wasn't there during the internal tests, but I know for sure that one name wasn't on the list of names and that was Satya. So, the problem is, you want to get the user's name, you want to get it in a way that doesn't look creepy or doesn't look like you're stalking them, like stealing it from their Facebook account. So, you have a component that you worked on, and you started it maybe 20 years ago, and it's called Namer. And the sole purpose of this component is to get
To get it right.
to get the user's name right through conversation.
And not through interrogation like, please give me your first name, just your first name now, only your first name. And then, do you have a middle initial or a middle name? Please provide it now. And then a last name, and if it's hyphenated, then is your last name really this? I mean, you could do something that really gets the name, or you could give the user a form, which is what most people do. But if you're in a car and the bot wants to get your name, you need Namer.
Yeah. That's what I found too. So, I mean, we're still working on getting, there's so many hundreds of thousands of names and variations and spellings, and this is something that
Some people have four first names.
4 first names, yeah. It seems like an easy task to get a name. It's actually one of the hardest things, and don't underestimate it. Using one of the CoCoHub components called Namer is a way to fast track your way to get there. So I guess that's my mistake.
So the mistake was what? To miss the name?
Is to assume that you can catch all the names when in fact not catching the name has.
I don't get the title Arose by any other name.
It's a Shakespeare line, man. It will still smell as sweet.
Well,
yeah.
It was before my time.
A little bit. AnnA?
Next slide.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. Okay, no one expects the Spanish. I don't even think the Spaniards expected it. So, the user is going to say unexpected things. And you need to expect it within the realm of expectation.
Jump out for a second, come back into the context, you mean?
Sometimes that could be
just switch context.
Switch context
in the middle of something.
Or they say something outrageous in the middle of something, and that you need to expect the unexpected. Meaning that you design an experience, you do this happy flow, this linear path. You have this in your mind. You know exactly how this conversation is going, but the user has obviously their own agenda, and they say something outrageous.
I love you in the middle.
In the middle, yeah. And so, how can you expect that?
What happens then?
Yeah. So you need to expect the unexpected at all times, which is not an easy thing to do.
So you need listeners. You need quiet listeners for all kinds of distractions that the user can bring up during a flow, conversation flow. And you should find a way to anticipate practically everything. And then you start, if you do anticipate it, and then you do discover a breach in the flow, and you want to indicate you understood, even then you have to decide, you want to take it or you want to ignore it. Sometimes users say things and the interlocutor ignores it and continues because he has a more important thing to say instead of reacting to this interruption. On the other hand, you may want to address what was said and continue with the flow without giving the user. So there's a bunch of possibilities here.
Yeah.
But you definitely should expect everything.
Yeah, expect the unexpected and give the users. I don't like to ignore the users. I find that one thing that frustrates them more than anything is when a bot drives forward without acknowledging. So at least acknowledging if they say "I love you" in the middle of a conversation, say
something continue.
And then going back to your flow, I think is okay. But ignoring them,
So listen in. This is the advice.
The mistake is in the beginning I wasn't expecting the unexpected, and now I expect strange questions at any time, at any point in a conversation.
Why did you pick the Spanish Inquisition instead of picking Corona?
Because that's the meme. No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. I don't know. It's a internet thing. It's a kid thing.
I see. So you keep quoting others.
I keep quoting Reddit.
Instead of making your own.
Come on, man. I mean,
You're
aggregated
distinguished enough
point.
to create the future memes. Don't copy others.
No, good point. Thank you, Yaki, for broadcasting that to all the people that thought I had something to offer.
These are your followers. I mean, they think highly of you.
I don't think so. They've never met me in person.
I don't think they might stay that way.
It's true.
Sorry, I have to keep it distance.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Alexa?
Alexa, next slide.
Anna.
You like this one. The Yaki question. What's the Yaki question? So for the first few years that I worked here, people talked about the Yaki question. And I had no idea what they were talking about. And so one of the great things about Yaki is that when he tests the bot, he'll talk to you through the bot. Which is funny. He gives me messages through the bot. Says, Jason, this line is terrible. Or, Jason, your flow here stinks. Or, whatever. But there's also a thing that you do when you test the bots, which is what I call the Yaki question. I say something like, I had a dream the other night. And then you say, a dream? That's what you say. You take part of the bot's input, repeat it back as a question, and you would be surprised. 70 or 80% of the bots that you do that to, they're like, I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for that. You just said I had a dream, and then you're asking about it, and then they have no answer for it.
When you say something, when the bot says something to the user, every single word that is included in the bot response has to have some expected input afterwards to be answered. Everything you mention in your input, even if it's on the side, if you mention a difficult word in English, what was the difficult word?
Portmanteau.
Portmanteau, okay? So Jason, just a few days ago, used the word portmanteau in a response, okay? So I asked, what is a portmanteau? Because, forgive me, I didn't know.
It's a combination of...
Maybe others don't know, huh?
So they should
it's a hybrid of two words, right? It's two words.
It's a combination of two or more words.
It's like Vodafone. No,
or brunch, which is breakfast and lunch put together in brunch.
So I asked, what is it? And guess what? The bot explained. So what Jason basically did, he anticipated some people asking, what is this word? Although, it was just on the side, it was an explanation, he just used a word. But some people will ask, what is the meaning of the word? So he had a ready-made answer for that. That's a perfect preemptive to the Yaki question. I didn't know you called it the Yaki question.
Yeah, we've been calling it for years, and not to your face, but now it's called the Yaki question. And so anytime I write a line, anytime I write a response, I always consider a follow-up that includes a Yaki question.
Well, all you have to do is make sure that everything that's mentioned in your previous response is covered. That's all.
Yeah.
And then you're covered.
Yeah.
I'll find out new kind of questions afterwards.
Well, I want to ask you about that. Maybe we'll have time later. Your methodology for when you test a bot, because the testing a bot is also an art form.
I really treat it like a person I meet.
Really?
Really, totally. What I don't usually do with people, which is really getting interested into things they tell me. I confess to not really hearing everything or not really listening to everything I hear. But in the case of when I speak to a bot, I really relate to what the bot says to me, and I pull his tongue, so to speak. So that's it. I'm trying to suspend disbelief, to speak to a person. That's the only trick.
Yeah. Well, I do a little differently.
I don't test a bot when I speak to it. I speak to a person. I'm interested in the person.
And it's also interesting to me that you always say goodbye. You never end a conversation with a bot in the middle. You never stop it. Which is...
I also don't usually enter, even if I want to test it, I don't need to enter real words, and I can enter just gibberish, just to have the next response. I rarely do it. I would say something, even if I don't, let's say I know...
Wait a second, sorry, hold on 1 second.
We have an interruption?
I think you just need to the speaker thing, you just need to...
Just pick it up. That's it, okay. Sorry guys.
Sorry about that. Thank you for the technical help.
What are they saying?
Shit. We lost our train of thought there, didn't we? We were talking about methodology, saying goodbye to the bot.
It's when I know you don't have an answer for something, okay, I can just enter a few letters and hit return, or I can say something like I'm really disappointed or Jason, what's going on? For the bot, it's the same. Jason, what's going on at this point? And just gibberish is the same. But I would say something, I wouldn't just...
You're not going to let that slide, no.
Yeah, because there's an input box,
Yeah.
I want to put words in it.
See, I do it a bit differently. I always go through, the first time I talk to a bot, I try to go through its flow as...
Because you know what you wrote. Usually
not for me, I'm talking about other people's bots. Like people that I talk to.
You cooperate, basically.
For the first few turns...
To understand what it's doing.
To try to get a sense of what it's doing. I don't even do... And then I stop using the buttons, stop using the things, and I start talking to it.
But when you test it, when you want to get acquainted with the bot, you cooperate completely.
Yeah.
You do what the bot expects you to say, and you usually know what the bot expects. Even if it doesn't give you the buttons, you know what you're expected to say. But after you understand the goal, the mission, what the bot is supposed to do in regular circumstances, then I start...
Spanish Inquisition, you giving it...
I'm just trying to surprise it.
Yeah.
What is your last point?
Okay, so AnnA, slide 5, and last point is Mr. Meeseeks, devoid of purpose.
Mr. Meeseeks.
You know Mr. Meeseeks
I
from
know,
Rick and
I
Morty.
know.
Mr. Meeseeks for people who are not Rick and Morty fans.
You didn't mention Rick 137A.
Yeah, I didn't. But he's not live, so people can't talk to him.
Of course he's live.
He's not. He's like Henry. He's disabled.
Disabled?
Yeah. We gotta work on that. We gotta get him back up again.
All right. We will.
So the reason that this devoid of purpose is a mistake is that bots need...
Wait, explain what it is.
Okay, sorry. Mr. Meeseeks in Rick and Morty is this thing that comes out of a box, and it has one thing. It has one purpose to do, and once it does its purpose, it can go away. And every second that it's alive is paying for it. So it strives to do its whatever, Mr. Meeseeks, make me a great tennis player. And so Mr. Meeseeks will have to work and train me as fast as he can.
The point is, the bot needs an agenda.
The bot needs an agenda.
Right?
That's the point.
It needs something to fulfill. It's not here just for nothing. It's here for a reason. And the reason could be to entertain the user, and then he has to be funny and engaging. Or the reason could be to get some piece of information, and then he has to strive for that. To use any tactics he can to get. But no conversation is a conversation without both sides to the conversation, both parties having an agenda of their own. He has to have a reason why he's here. So for example, if a user asks the bot, why are you here? The bot should say, I'm here to get your address, or I'm here to entertain you, I'm here to tell you jokes, I'm here to answer questions about this product or this business or whatever. He has to know what his aim is. And if he's left alone, he should bring up the goal. He has to be proactive. Let's say a personal assistant will just sit there, wait for an instruction or a question, right? A conversational AI, when there's a lull in the conversation, if the last input that he got from the user was okay, what should a bot do now? It should strive for his goal.
Yeah.
It should bring up the reason why he's here.
Yeah.
So the point is, a bot should always have an agenda and the reason for talking.
For existing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we forget that sometimes. We rush to make bots, and then we realize, wait, maybe this shouldn't have been a bot, or maybe this doesn't need to be a bot, or maybe this does need to be a bot. The idea is that when you set out in the beginning, you can say, okay, well, this bot's purpose is to this, its name is this, these are the personality traits. You've already begun to create your bot. You've already begun to create the personality that's going to represent your brand, your enterprise.
You didn't really mention in your 5 mistakes, because maybe you didn't...
I had many more mistakes, Yaki. There's 5, I want this thing to keep on
so
going.
Maybe it's not in the mistakes, it's in the rules. The first rule, I think I saw you give a talk about the rules, not the mistakes that you made. One of the rules there was, give your bot a personality, define it.
Yeah.
As a sentient entity.
Yeah.
Give it some kind of traits that come to play in the way he speaks.
Yeah. AnnA, can you throw on the screen that character profile thing? Maybe we can show it on the screen there for a second. I don't know where it is on the thing. It's in that same folder. Yeah, somewhere, AnnA. If you can use your magic in that same folder. But anyway, what it is, this character profile is basically that's my starting point. Every time I get a project, I start there.
Name, age,
Sex,
location,
gender,
ASL.
favorite favorite movie, favorite TV show, favorite food, favorite color. Because people ask these things. No matter what bot you create, they're gonna ask, "What's your favorite color?"
You know what Alan's Turing favorite color is? I mean Alan Turing the bot.
The bot, right? No, I got that.
And why?
I don't know.
It's orange.
Because orange is
The color of thought.
the color of thought.
I don't know who invented that, but
No, it's kind of Eastern thing, yeah.
It's 20-year-old line.
That's great. Can you scroll down a bit? Is there any more? Maybe we scroll down to the bottom of it, if there is a bottom to that page, because I want to show you something that's the important part. Is the dictionary that we use. See, what you want to do, especially if you're working as a conversation design team, and this happens a lot and this is going to be happening a lot now because of COVID-19, is people working remotely from each other, conversation designers.
On the same personality.
On the same personality. And so what you need to do is, in other fields they have style guides, like websites, and we have a character profile, and everyone, you add how it reacts positively, what it says when it's flustered, what it says when it's happy, and you give its unique speech, and so everyone knows how to write for that specific character, and then you have a consistent personality.
Interesting, catchphrases you have.
Yeah, and this is just the abridged version. We have an 18-page Bible that basically has where your parents were born and things that go way, 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 way deep into the bots. Too much, but people ask these questions, and so even if you don't answer them, like as the designer, you should know them because that informs the character that you're creating. I think, at least.
Yes.
So now that you and I have talked it's like a half an hour already, I think, and there's probably, are there any people left? Do we have is anybody still here?
Few, yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe we should open it up to some questions and see, and then what we're going to do after that is we're going to try and get Grant Ronald from Oracle, their digital assistant, on the line and have him talk a bit about his experiences building the digital assistant for Oracle.
All right.
But we'll take a quick break right now, smoke a cigarette maybe.
All right. All right. Get the questions.
And questions.
So we have...
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We went out, we had some water, we got some feedback from our technical team, and which brings up a very important topic which we didn't discuss.
We mentioned it.
We mentioned it briefly in the beginning, the feedback loop. And I always tell people that I live in the feedback loop. It's the first thing I do.
What is the feedback loop?
What is the feedback loop? That's a good question. I'm going to let you explain it.
All right.
But I spend most of my day in the feedback loop, reviewing conversations and improving them. So,
guys, no bot is going to be to perform reasonably well if it doesn't get, I say, between 1 and 2 months of users hacking at it. And I'm not talking about Amazon Turks or services that try to automate the service. I'm talking about users. Some kind of sample population that will really, really test the bot. The most important things happen to a bot while examining logs and finding all the loopholes that exist in the initial versions.
all these Spanish Inquisition questions.
I must have developed literally hundreds of bots, and it's always been the case that the bot becomes good only in the 3rd or 4th months of operation. That means that every component of conversation, every bot has to undergo extensive testing by real users. There's no way around it. There is no way around it.
It's an interesting point.
Which means that you have to let it go and then watch the logs for a long time. And throughout this process, you get the 90% of the bugs you get out in 2 weeks. And then the remaining 10% takes another month or 2 months to really iron it out, and sometimes more. I've been fixing bugs in Namer, which has hundreds of different rules which cover different options, until this day. It never ends.
Never ends.
Okay, it's very rare.
Yeah.
But you know.
Oh, I know.
So,
and it's important for them to understand.
So listen. Feedback loop is a real big topic, and you cannot live without it. A bot cannot be successful without it, and we'll discuss it in our next meeting.
That sounds like a good idea.
All right.
I like that.
So what's next?
So what's next? Well, just one more. Can I add one more thing about the feedback loop?
All right.
Do you mind? Is that yeah.
It's your show. It's your show.
It's not my show.
It's your show.
Yeah,
Come on.
okay. Well, it's my show. With the thing is a lot of people say, okay, well, we can offer you a bot that, you know, once you release it, it's great, it's everything. I have yet to see a bot like that.
Well, maybe been tested properly, like I said.
Right, but sometimes a strategy that we've used in the past is something called a soft launch, which a lot of companies, and if you're afraid that there's a lot of bugs and it hasn't been tested properly, but you need to release it maybe
to a limited population that have control over it, that understand the situation, and will take it lightly.
But
because what people do now is they release the bot to the real population with it being terrible. I can give you horrible examples of really Fortune 100 companies that have bots on the site, and when you ask them, why are you here? They would say, I don't understand what you just said, please rephrase your question. This is absurd, and this is just, you know, if anybody would properly put it out to the test before, it would iron it out immediately. But this phase of limited population and a long time of real user testing is essentially has to be built into every project.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's the most important part to me. So
if you can use a part of a bot that's been tested a long time by others, that's a big advantage.
Which is what the components.
Well, I was plugging it in right now, so yeah.
All right. Well, so first of all, thank you for joining us, and I hope you're still.
We still have a guest, right?
We still have Grant Ronald coming today from Oracle.
So let's hear him. Maybe.
Let's hear Grant.
So can you get him on the line?
Let's get him on the line.
All right.
Okay, everyone, welcome back. We have Grant Ronald from Oracle with us, our special guest. And
nice to meet you guys.
Hi, Grant.
Hi, Grant. Now, since this is a conversation design-oriented meetup, tell us your background a bit. How did you get into conversation?
So we at Oracle have been building chatbot platform, and our applications teams have been using that for the last 5 years or so. And what we found is, and my focus was on the technology as a developer, and people were building, but they didn't quite know how to build great bots. They were building technical bots. And so we really recognized that, you know, this key missing ingredient, which a lot of you guys will know the value of, but we would just hadn't really discovered the importance, was that conversational design. The fact that, you know, you design a car, you design a database, but no one ever thought that you design a conversation. And so, I mean, we've got UX research teams in Oracle who were starting to break this down. And for me, it was probably the most common reason for failure in bot projects was lack of thinking about the bigger picture conversational design. So I had, my approach then was, okay, we need to find out, we need to read, we need to connect with people. And so it's kind of just by accident I got into the conversational design thing, because we realized that was the secret sauce that made chatbots, you know, good rather than just being functional.
Just as a point of interest, how did you get into conversation design? From what other area of expertise did you naturally flow into that?
Well, you know, I always, purely personally, I always had an interest in a lot of my background as a developer was on the front end development. So we kind of knew the importance of you know, user experience, user design. And I guess I'd always had a bit of an interest in language anyway.
So it comes from UI, basically.
For me, it was because I was a kind of front-end developer with most of my time that we realized the importance. It just changed from colors and fonts to language and words was the move.
So we were talking a bit earlier about personality and how important it is for the verticals that we work in, which are mostly entertainment. And I'm curious to get from you, how important is personality when it comes to enterprise and digital assistants or digital companions?
That's a great question, because I've often thought about this, that, why is it important that your HR or ERP or some kind of mundane enterprise system has a personality? You can really see it in commercial, but why does it matter in your kind of enterprise apps? And the thing is, it hugely does, because, when we talk to people, we want to have an engaging conversation. So the medium really lends itself, or the expectation that this should be engaging. And what we found with a lot of these apps where I was getting involved looking at and reviewing was that for many of them, I'd say, this sounds like I'm speaking to a Victorian grandfather. It's very stiff and it's very formal. And it uses words like invalid ID. I mean, who says the words invalid ID in a conversation? You'll say something like, oh, sorry, that phone number didn't seem to work, or was that the right number you gave me? But we would say things like invalid ID. You could actually see almost the database errors coming out in the conversation, because the developer would see, oh, I've got this Aura 600 error, that's invalid ID. I'll say invalid ID.
Please enter your something instead of give me.
Exactly. Words like, and this is something our UX teams came up with, picking words that work both on the voice and the written channel, like tell me, not enter your name or whatever. And it's all those little subtle things, but personality, and we run these workshops now, even with our own apps and our customers, to say, one of the first things you come up with is, who is your bot? Who is it? Because when you are coming up with those error messages or the bot's conversing, you've got to get inside that mindset and say, well, who's speaking this? What would she say if she was telling you this problem or something? So it's become number one. Now, it doesn't have to be a really extreme personality, but you've just got to think about, what is the personality? Just think in that personality.
Tell me, have you encountered in the space that you operate in a lot of collaboration or reuse of code, or some kind of joint effort to use something that was developed in like one place in another place?
From a purely technical point of view, one of the things that we do, and if you think in an Oracle situation where we have all these different teams building SaaS applications, there's some that are building HR, some of the expenses or finance, and they're building these individually. And one of the things that we wanted to do was allow companies to reuse these, what we now call skills. I think we all understand what a skill is, and assemble these under a digital assistant. So reuse became quite a major factor for us, because we wanted to say, look, for customer A, you have these 10 applications, but for customer X, you have a different set of applications, but you should be able to just bring those together and assemble them together. And the digital assistant should be able to work out, well, when you ask me, I want to, book some time off or something, we know that that's the HR skill that deals with that. So reuse was pretty key in terms of a general approach for us building our platform and the people using it.
Only in your ecosystem.
Sorry?
Only in the Oracle ecosystem.
Well, no, it's a good question. So, yeah, certainly elements of reuse is quite heavily around our own platform, but there's generic areas where things like back-end integration are used using technology like Node.js. So that can be kind of used and shared across different vendors as well.
You used interchangeably the terms digital assistant and bot or chatbot. Do you see a distinction between the two terms?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We kind of, I kind of mix and match the terms, but there are really distinct differences. So for us, chatbot skills are individual kind of bots that do a set unit of work. The idea where we're going with a digital assistant is twofold. One is the digital assistant becomes the umbrella for many skills, so that you as a company, you don't have to go and find the right chatbot. You speak to your chatbot and say, hey, Oracle, book me next Friday off work. And it knows which skill to go to. So that's one element of digital assistant. It kind of assembles together many skills or chatbots.
Or a brain, or it decides which...
It's the intelligent, it's the router.
Yeah.
It's the router or air traffic control. But the other thing that's important for us in terms of a digital assistant, which is more of a kind of where we want to get to, is personalization and proactiveness as well. So that when I say to the digital assistant, give me the latest monthly reports, it will know me and say, well, you're the HR manager, so that must mean the HR report. Whereas if I was a finance manager, then the same utterance would be different. Exactly. So we'll deal with personalization, and out of personalization then comes the proactive element. That if we know that every Monday you're doing this particular task or whatever it might be, we can proactively go and say, hey, we've done this for you. Is that okay? We've approved these things, or we've created these 5 reports that you always ask for. Yeah, is that fine? So, but that's kind of the next step ahead. But those are really where we see the differences with digital assistant and skills.
If you wanted to hold a long, deep, serious conversation with a machine, it would probably be a chatbot and not a personal assistant, because it would be it will have to be an expert in the field in which it converses. So probably the personal assistant or the digital assistant will direct the conversation to some entity that can hold a deep context dialogue.
Exactly. The digital assistant, and certainly when you look at our development environment, it's simply you create a digital assistant and you drag and drop in, or you select the various skills or bots that you want this digital assistant to contain, and then you train it because it looks at what's in each of those skills and has an idea of, well, you deal with things about HR, you deal with things about expenses, so when you ask a question, it knows
components, so to speak, to handle this particular situation.
Or skill in this case.
Or skill. If you had access to all of Alexa's skills, let's say that Amazon went crazy and opened all its skills to Oracle. Okay, then you could have 10,000 different skills that your digital assistant would be able to access. That would be nice, right?
No, because again, it's based on each of the skills that we develop in our platform are specific for our digital assistant. So yeah, we're keeping it within that Oracle ecosystem. That so it will only be the skills that we develop.
Everything. You have to rely on someone from the Oracle ecosystem to develop a weather component, whilst maybe Alexa already has it.
Right, but if you think about the Oracle ecosystem, is that we're probably building stuff that are quite specific for particular functional pillars. That's true. So, but there's nothing to say we cannot access, for example, public APIs that give you the weather, for example.
Well, I don't want to go too deep into the technical, because this is the crowd here is mostly conversation designers like me. And
we'll do it privately then, Grant.
So 2 things I want to ask you. I come from the background of filmmaking. Yaki comes from philosophy and language, linguistics, and programming. The people that are watching, or people that might be interested in becoming conversation designers, where do you think they come from? What fields do you think are suited for this type of position?
UI, you heard it.
A UI.
Oh, it's. Do you know what? when I often talk about the importance of conversation design, I often use the example of, you think Elton John, who was a fantastic songwriter, but didn't write his lyrics. That was all by Bernie Taupin. And you know, people can come from any walks of life. I think you've just got to have a great idea about words. You know, it might even be, you know, it could be people who are coming from a kind of film scripting background, copywriting. It could even be, certainly in Oracle's case, you know, or more enterprise, people from a marketing side. Some of our most successful customers that we've worked with actually got small digital agencies to come in and craft the personality and craft the wording. And then once they had a really strong personality, the actual development team were pretty good at getting in the mindset of the bot and speaking in the bot as well. So I think you just needed to give people a push in the right direction to what is conversational design. What are the good things? What are the things people get wrong, and get people thinking about that. So, and again, that's where personality, I think, was really important. That once you got inside the bot's personality, it was easier to start crafting words yourself.
Comedians was great.
Stand-up comedians are good material for conversation designer.
Also journalists.
Right.
Because they know how to ask the right questions.
Interviewers.
So let me ask you something about the training. We spend a lot of time in the feedback loop, reviewing conversation logs and improving, you know. How much of that do you rely on? How important is that in your daily work routine?
It's not them, it's the people that develop with their platform.
So, yeah. So there's a phrase we use in one of our training slides where we say, you know, the day your bot goes live is not the day you pop the champagne, because that's when the hard work starts. So again, it's one of those things trying to teach people that your bot goes live. It's probably the most stupid that it's going to be on that day. And you've got to have the buy-in from your business that this bot is going to fail. I mean, we've had some customers that will turn the bot on literally for a minute, and if something goes wrong, they turn it off again. They're just paralyzed. And we say to them, no, you've got to have a buy-in that you will learn from the bot mistakes when things go wrong, and you've got to have this ongoing cycle, whether it's every day or every week, where you go through your conversation logs, you work out what the things people are asking, how you can better train the bot. And we talk about this 80-20 split, where you train your bot with 80% of the phrases you've harvested and 20% you keep for testing, so that you're always testing the bot against things it doesn't know about, you haven't been trained on. And that way you're always kind of, you've always got a baseline to know, is my bot getting smarter and smarter over time? But yeah, that whole repeat, that rinse repeat cycle is super important. If you're not doing it,
exactly that point.
You're not going to get far.
As you heard before.
Yeah, I agree. I think.
Excellent. Yeah. And in fact, it's really relevant at the moment, because obviously with the coronavirus thing, we're working with a lot of health authorities, and one of the things we're saying to them is that we will be working with them on a 24-hour cycle, where we are looking at the bot, finding out what people are asking, new questions, and getting that fed back in. We cannot wait 6 weeks to find out things people are asking the bot that it didn't understand. We're actually doing it as an ongoing 24-hour cycle.
Excellent.
Okay, so last question for you. Let's say I'm a conversation designer and I want to go into the field. What would you recommend? Where do I start? What do I do? Is there...
Get a job at Oracle.
Do you know, I've been really warmed by the response I've got from LinkedIn, all you guys, conversational designers. I feel there's a real warmth in terms of people recognizing that this is important, but we're still finding where we get in. So I would get out on LinkedIn, meet up with people, because there's an amazing community of people who are willing to share and work together. So and I'm
Okay, well, that was fascinating. We are going to have another special guest next month if people want to join us. Next
Is it a monthly event?
I mean, we can do it daily, but that seems like a bit of a stretch.
Well, let's say the April event.
The April event.
Let's not commit when exactly.
Okay.
Maybe it's going to be the beginning of April and then the end of April.
Who knows?
Maybe.
It's going to be in April, though. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
We're going to have a former colleague and good friend of ours, Eitan Weinstein, who is a lead conversation designer at Intuition Robotics, coming in. And he has lots of experience designing conversations. We're going to talk to him about his process a little bit, about his methodology.
What are they doing? They're doing
They're doing LEQ, which is the robot for the elderly, and they're also doing AutoQ, which is the
humanoid robot.
Yeah.
Speaking robot.
A speaking robot.
And he's in charge of the conversation part.
He's in charge of the personality of LEQ. So,
That's interesting.
yeah, so he should have some interesting things to say.
All right.